Haunted Secrets of the Sinister Park Ranger. 10 terrifying missing cases revealed on stormy nights. Jessie gripped the wheel of her battered old Ford truck, her heart pounding in rhythm with the raindrops thrumming against the windshield. The storm outside raged like a creature agitated from slumber, its thunder crashing like a warning bell across the empty, winding roads leading to Maple Grove's lush parks. Inside, her 7-year-old son Timmy sat quietly, clutching his favorite teddy bear, its threadbare fur once vibrant but now stained by countless adventures. And perhaps some darker memories. Despite the vibrant charm of the park, something sinister lurked beneath its surface, and the whispers of 10 unsolved disappearances hung like a curling, dense fog over the community. Jessie had seen the fear in the townsfolk's eyes when they spoke of it, though they tried to bury their dread beneath reminders of family picnics and sunny afternoons. As thunder boomed overhead, Jessie felt a familiar twist of unease root itself in her stomach. The darkness outside felt alive, shadows shifting just beyond the tree line, watching her. "Timmy, honey," she said, forcing a smile, "stay close and keep those doors locked tight, okay?" His wide eyes flickered with uncertainty, but he nodded. Jessie was determined to make this night a normal patrol shift, despite the chilling ambiance. But the woods felt like a predator, lurking just out of sight, whispering secrets in the rustling leaves, secrets she could almost grasp, but not quite. The radio, usually a companion on long nights, crackled to life and sent a prickling chill through her spine. "Watch the shadows. 10 lost souls. They're still here." The voice trailed off into distorted static, reigniting her unease. She nearly laughed it off as a joke, a malfunction, or even a prank, but as Jessie continued her drive, the unsettling messages lingered in her mind, gnawing at her rational thoughts. Suddenly, a distant flash illuminated the road, momentarily flickering her surroundings. Then an impulse gripped her, compelling her to pull over by the old ranger cabin, a relic nearly forgotten but brimming with history. The heavy door creaked open as she stepped inside, air thick with mildew and the weight of untold secrets. Dust motes danced in the fading light as Jessie found a weathered journal resting on the table. The moment she flipped open its fragile pages, frantic scrawls ensnared her attention, each sentence bleeding fear. Betrayal, obsession, and bizarre accounts of disappearances swirled before her eyes. With every read, the truth spun further away from the benign facade Maple Grove displayed. This wasn't just a park. It was alive with tragedy tied tightly to her own bloodline. Just as she grasped the significance, a loud thud echoed behind her. Adrenaline pumped through her veins. She spun around. The warm light from the cabin was devoured by an encroaching darkness, and Jessie's breath quickened. A figure loomed just outside, half obscured by the night. Was that a face she recognized? Panic surged like a tidal wave. She dashed back to the truck, hearts thumping in a dance of dread. Timmy's little face mirrored her terror. Gripping the steering wheel, she felt the weight of what lay ahead. This wasn't just a flight, it was a race against a haunting, deep-rooted legacy that demanded reckoning, and the sinister stories woven through Maple Grove's beauty might just ensnare them both. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The thunder continued its assault as Jessie's mind raced. Who was that figure? Why did it seem so familiar yet so twisted in its intent? Could her childhood friend be a part of the dark tapestry woven into her life? As she maneuvered away from the cabin, she couldn't shake off the feeling that the very trees and shadows encroaching upon them were hiding older, deeper crimes that demanded acknowledgement. The park wasn't merely a preserve, it was a prison of history, and as she glanced back at the ominous silhouette fading behind the trees, her insides turned cold. Could escaping Maple Grove be enough to save herself and Timmy from its haunted grip? Or was danger just beginning its relentless pursuit? Jessie swung the truck around with a fierce determination. Rain pounded on the roof like 1,000 frantic drummers. Heart racing, her eyes darted back to the woods. The trees stole her breath as they twisted and contorted in the wind, branches snaking like skeletal hands reaching for her. "Mommy, what's happening?" Timmy's voice cracked the thick air, eyes wide with fear. "Just a little storm, sweetheart. We're safe in here," Jessie whispered, desperation lacing her words. But deep down, she knew the truth was much darker. She pushed the accelerator, but the truck refused to move fast enough, the tires struggling against the slick road. The weight of the night felt unbearable, as if the world itself was pressing down on them, urging her to stop. As she passed the cabin, briefly illuminated by another flash of lightning, Jessie caught a glimpse of the figure again. It stood there, more distinct now, a gaunt silhouette with hollow eyes. Her breath quickened. Was that truly someone she knew? Every rational thought screamed for her to drive, but a tether of curiosity held her, a grip stronger than fear itself. "Timmy, close your eyes, just for a moment, okay?" she urged, willing him to shield himself from whatever was lurking in the shadows. He complied, clutching his bear tighter and mumbling soft reassurances to himself. With every ounce of courage, she drove back towards the cabin, feeling an invisible force pulling her in. She parked haphazardly, barely registering the thunderous protests of the engine as it sputtered. Jessie could hear the rhythm of her heartbeat syncing with the thunder, each boom a reminder of their peril. The figure was gone. Jessie stepped out, frantically glancing around. Was it really just a trick of the light? Or had the figure vanished into the darkness, like the 10 lost souls spoken of in hushed tones throughout her childhood? She took a shuddering breath and noticed a curious glow emerging from the cabin window. It beckoned her forward. "Timmy, stay here. I'll be right back." She slung open the door before he could protest, unlocking a world of memories and dread. Stepping into the damp air, Jessie felt her pulse race anew. The shadows beckoned around her like insistent whispers. She felt certain they carried warnings and revelations after decades of silence. She stepped inside the cabin, the journal still resting atop the dust-covered table. But now a new piece of paper lay there, fresh ink, bright against the yellowed pages. It was a list. Names crossed out one by one, each mark sending a shiver down her spine. One name, however, sent her heart into her throat. It was hers. Next to it was Timmy's name. "No! No!" she breathed, panic swelling in her chest. Her fingers trembled as she touched the list, trying to make sense of it all. Had someone been watching? Tracking them? Suddenly a sharp crash broke the suffocating silence, shattering her stunned focus. It came from the woods, sharp and sudden, followed by hushed whispers that echoed in the darkness. They were not alone. "Mom!" Timmy's terrified shout pierced through the thin walls, snapping her back to reality. Jessie raced to the door, fear inked on her face. As she stumbled outside, a freezing wind caught her, carrying with it a haunting laughter that seemed to swirl around her like a living entity. What awaited her in the shadows was what she feared most. What truths would emerge from this stormy night, and who or what would come for her and Timmy? She felt that dark weight pressing in around her again, grief-stricken voices swirling with malevolent intent. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, yet something deeper called her to confront whatever had long haunted Maple Grove. As she turned back towards the truck, a fleeting animal-like shape slipped between the trees, just beyond sight. Would she dare to follow? And what would the park reveal if she dared to tread farther into its depths? Jessie's heart hammered in her chest. She hesitated, caught between the urge to run and the need to protect Timmy. The air around her thickened with tension, each breath feeling like a battle against an invisible force. "Mommy, please!" Timmy's voice broke through the dread, and the fear in his eyes twisted her gut. The wind howled louder, seeming to carry whispers laced with malice. What kind of night was this? She felt the darkness close in, clinging to her shadows like cobwebs. Turning her back to the looming woods, Jessie sprinted toward the truck. "Timmy, get ready!" she shouted, gripping the door like it was a lifeline. But as she opened it, a bone-chilling laugh echoed from behind her. It wasn't just the wind. It was an unmistakably human sound, taunting and sinister. And, "Mommy, I'm scared!" Timmy whimpered, clutching the bear even tighter. Jessie's mind raced, the list, the figure, the laugh. She couldn't shake them. Pushing fear deep down, Jessie turned slowly to face the woods one last time. She could feel something watching her, hungry for her panic. Then just beyond the tree line, she saw it again, the gaunt figure standing still, studying her with those hollow eyes. The eyes seemed to penetrate through her, hollow yet alive, like empty sockets filled with malice. Jessie fought the urge to scream. Was it the park ranger everyone warned about? "Get down!" she yelled, ducking low as she grabbed Timmy, pulling him into the truck. The storm raged on, pouring like a wrathful beast, but Jessie's focus narrowed to only one thing: getting away. Suddenly something crashed against the truck, metal grating against metal. Jessie's heart stopped as she turned to find a branch had snapped and fallen. No, it wasn't a branch. A figure lunged into sight, its gnarled, outstretched hand clawing at the window. "Drive, drive!" Timmy screamed, terror filling his voice. Jessie's hands shook as she fumbled for the ignition, turning the key with frantic urgency. But before she could shift into gear, another figure emerged from the shadows, a second silhouette just as menacing. They were surrounded. "Jessie!" Timmy cried, eyes wide with horror. "No!" She clutched Timmy close. "We will get out of this!" Thunder boomed, drowning out the desperate whispers that swirled around them like smoke. Jessie could feel her pulse thrumming in her ears. What did this mean? Were they marked already? Those names in the cabin had made it clear. They were part of something dark. The figures moved closer, faces still obscured by the storm. But Jessie could see gleams of white in between shadows. Were those teeth? Were they grinning at her? Panic gripped her heart tighter. "Stay down!" she urged, pressing Timmy into the seat as she desperately thought of a way out. Just as she shifted the gear, the lights flickered, illuminating the figures for a fleeting moment. They were grotesque, twisted mockeries of human forms, too thin, too tall, too wrong. They seemed to be waiting. For what? "Jessie, fight!" A shadow within Timmy's bright fear ignited a spark in her. With renewed strength, she pressed down on the accelerator, the tires squealing against the mud. The truck jerked forward, slinging them back into the storm. But as she sped away, the figures melted back into the trees, laughing with that haunting echo. It was a laughter that promised they would be waiting. Jessie struggled to breathe, desperately glancing back through the rearview mirror, but the shadows had submerged back into the suffocating darkness. "What was that?" Timmy whispered, his small voice trembling. They want to take us." Jessie's voice quivered, each word a weight of dread. Images of the list flooded her mind, and she fought back tears. "We have to go." But as the engine roared to life, something in the distance flickered, a glow that shimmered like a beacon at the edge of the woods, glimmering with the same eerie light she'd seen from the cabin. It flickered in the downpour, pulling at her attention, whispering her name. With her heart racing, she turned towards the light. Was it a way out or another trap? She could almost hear the figures still laughing behind her. "Mommy, don't!" Timmy cried, sensing her hesitation. But the light tugged at Jessie, a siren's call alongside Storm's rage. Would she brave the shadows again, chasing yet another thread of mystery, or would darkness consume them both? Jessie's breath quickened as she wrestled with the overwhelming pull of the mysterious light. It flickered like a candle caught in a storm, casting unnatural shadows on the trees that surrounded them. The swirling tempest drummed against the metal of the truck, the relentless rain pummeling their surroundings as if demanding an answer. "Mommy, please." Timmy's voice trembled, knocking her back into reality. It brought a crushing weight of anxiety that clawed at her gut. "We can't go there. Just a glimpse. Just to see," Jessie whispered, half to herself, half to him. The desperation to understand what lay beneath the eerie brightness clawed at her conscience, and she gripped the steering wheel tightly. "Mommy!" Timmy screamed. "We have to go!" In that moment, Jessie's heart plunged deeper into fear. Instinct screamed at her to drive away, yet that glow mesmerized her, challenging her very understanding of safe and dangerous. She cranked the wheel toward the road, but the light grew stronger, radiating like a pulse, calling like a lost dream. With every ounce of her trembling courage, she steered back into the storm. "Hold on tight!" she shouted, slamming the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, tires splashing mud in a desperate kick against the ground. Yet for every inch they gained, the shadows lingered just outside, always threatening, always laughing. Rogues of wind sliced at the truck windows, and Jessie felt the weight of something intangible pressing against her. It was as if the very air vibrated with their presence. The figures, slim and nauseatingly grotesque, danced along the edges of her vision, slipping into the dark. "Drive faster," Timmy pleaded, panic edging his young voice sharp. "They're coming!" Just then, Jessie caught a glimpse of the cabin outside the rearview mirror, the very place they'd barely escaped. The outline of the weathered wood twisted against the storm, and she remembered the list. A spine-chilling thought burst forth. Could the light lead to the answers they needed, or would it lead to their doom? "No!" she shouted suddenly, slapping her palm against her forehead as images of the names swarmed her memories. They had been chosen. They had been warned. Every second they lingered felt like betrayal against the unspoken pact of survival. "Mummy, look out!" Timmy's shout cut through her thoughts, sending an electric jolt through Jessie. Turning her gaze from the beckoning light, dread surged in her veins. A dark figure, larger and more monstrous than the others, emerged from the trees at a breakneck speed, bounding toward them like a predator on a hunt. It was the park ranger, if that's still what it was, a haggard thing with the same hollow gaze that haunted her dreams. "Faster!" Jessie screamed, and the truck surged forward. The engine roared, and Jessie squinted through the rain, barely able to discern the road ahead. A collision course was imminent. Shadows swelled around her, tentacles of darkness ready to engulf the truck. With every heartbeat, the laughing echoed louder, vibrating through the air like a mad symphony. But as she fought to stay composed, another flicker caught her eye. The silhouettes of figures surged, blocking their path ahead. The brambles choked the edges of the road, ominous and thick, their long arms stretching forward like grasping fingers. "Mommy!" Timmy's face went pale, fear radiating off him in cold waves. Jessie gritted her teeth, an idea sparking against the encroaching horror. There was still a path, a narrow trail skirting the woods that might lead to the old road back to town. It was risky, but it might be their only hope. "Hang on!" she shouted, veering the truck toward the rough path. As the tires splashed through puddles, the shadows lunged, but exhilaration and terror clashed within her. The wild ride through the underbrush was heart-stopping as branches clawed at the truck. Screeches pierced the sky, melding with the storm. Jessie felt the weight of the figures behind. Would the trail lead to safety, or deeper into whatever dark fate awaited them? "Mommy!" Timmy's small voice quivered, the tension nearly suffocating. Jessie glanced back, and for a split second she thought she saw the ranger's face flickering into view. A visage of despair and anger. "Keep your eyes on the road," she cried, her pulse racing as doubt crept in like a thief. The stakes had never been higher, and Jessie realized they weren't just running from shadows, they were trying to escape a nightmare too real. And just as she shifted her focus back, a sudden screech erupted. Something had pierced the tires, tearing through their escape. The truck veered wildly, spinning out of control as reality twisted dreadfully ahead. Would this be the end? To be continued? The truck skidded across the muddy ground, wheels spinning and slipping, fighting for grip as Jessie wrestled with the steering wheel. Timmy shrieked, his tiny voice a desperate wail against the chaos surrounding them. The rain drummed violently, drowning out the sinister giggles that filled the air, swirling frantic and manic, growing louder with each second. Jessie's heart raced, panic clawing at her throat. "Mommy, control it!" Timmy gasped, eyes wide with terror, his small hand gripping the dashboard as if hoping to anchor them both. Through her foggy vision, Jessie caught a glimpse of looming shadows, twisting and reaching from the trees, their grasping forms darting closer. The tires hit a dip, sending the truck tumbling into a mud-filled pit. With a guttural lurch, the vehicle stuttered and slumped, its engine sputtering as though it, too, was losing hope. "Come on, come on!" she yelled, fumbling with the ignition, every second dragging heavier than the last. The figures behind them were closing in, their laughter resonating like a sickening chant mingled with the storm's fury. The engine coughed once, then again. Jessie felt the blood drain from her face. Then, in a stroke of desperate luck, it roared back to life, exploding into a cacophony of sound that cut through the fear like a knife. She slammed the gear into reverse, spinning the tires, mud and gravel flying as she retreated against the creeping darkness. "Mummy, go forward!" Timmy cried, his small voice trembling. She couldn't fight the clear instinct tugging at her. Forward was where the light was, but it had also drawn in something terrible. Without another thought, she threw the truck into a swift turn and shot down the narrow path, branches whipping across the windows like claws. Shadows danced alongside them, attempting to keep pace, darting glimpses of faces twisted in torment, haunting and familiar. The echoes of the past mingled with the storm, and she fought hard against the absurd notion that she knew them. The trail narrowed, tightening its grip as the trees reclaimed their territory. Jessie could smell the damp earth, the wet wood, a scent both fresh and stifling. The figures seemed to pulse around her, growing bolder, their moaning calls mingling with the wind, carrying secrets that curled around her like a noose. "Faster!" Timmy cried, the urgency in his tone anchoring her resolve. "They're right behind us." "Just hold on, baby," she shouted, trying to drown out her own fear. The thought of abandoning the path for the beckoning light was now nothing more than a whisper in her mind, shushed by the presence that lurked nearby. As the trees finally thinned, Jessie glimpsed the outline of an old road, a ghost of civilization, unkempt and fractured. Hope flared, igniting her heart. But as she hurtled toward it, the shadows lunged, a wall of darkness flooding the lane ahead. Jessie slammed on the brakes, screeching to a halt mere inches from the encroaching moor. "Mommy!" Timmy cried out, now fully aware of the danger that loomed. Jessie's breath came in short gasps. In that heart-stopping moment they were ensnared. Shadows loomed, their collective gaze fixed upon the truck with a hunger that sent chills down her spine. Would she make the right choice? The oppressive silence thudded heavily, pressing against her ears. Jessie turned to Timmy, his face illuminated by the erratic flashes of lightning illuminating their surroundings. She whispered desperately, "What are we going to do?" His gaze darted around, wide and terrified. In a haunting, quiet tone, he leaned closer. "They want us to go back to see, Mommy, to see the light." Just then the truck shuddered, the old metal groaning as if responding to the silent call of the figures outside. Jessie felt something brush against the door, cool and ghostly, a presence that sent her hand to the lock in instinctive urgency. But what if they had to confront it? What if the answers lay in the chaos, waiting at the edge of their fate? In that fragile moment of uncertainty, a spine-chilling laugh echoed through the air, blending with the clap of thunder as realization set in. Jessie wasn't just facing shadows, she was staring down the abyss. To be continued. Jessie's heart thundered in her chest, primal instinct screaming for her to flee. The shadows swayed and twisted at the edges of her vision, their laughter a cruel mockery of her fear. With a surge of adrenaline, she turned the ignition again. The engine's growl now struggling against the cacophony of wind and thunder. Timmy's small voice quivered. "Mommy, they're getting closer!" The truck's headlights flickered across the faces of the tormentors outside. Jessie clutched the steering wheel, body tense, as those familiar warped features surged in and out of view. They were people she recognized, too eerie and twisted for any rational thought. Friends, neighbors, all lost. "Stay down," she screamed, as a cold hand brushed against the passenger window. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving her gasping for breath as icy dread seeped into her bones. "Go back! It's the only way!" Timmy's plea hung in the air, laden with urgency and fatalism. The road ahead was dark and empty, speckled with the occasional flash of light, revealing the monstrous shapes around them. The darkness behind beckoned, promising safety in the form of familiarity, but Jessie could not shake the feeling that it would only draw them deeper into the horror. "No!" she shouted, the word escaping with fierce conviction. I won't lose you, Timmy!" She turned the wheel sharply, tires screeching as the truck veered closer to the embankment. The shadows lurked, pressing against the metal frame, their hollow eyes glinting with a terrible hunger. A sound like nails on a chalkboard clawed through the air, followed by a piercing cry. Jessie's thoughts collided in panic, battling against the tide of temptation to surrender to the darkness. "Mommy!" Timmy wailed, trembling as branches whipped at the window, leaving streaks of mud and rain that masked the face of their nightmare. "They're coming in!" A chill shot through Jessie as she felt the press of spectral fingers against the door, trying to slip through the cracks. The grotesque faces pressed against the glass, their mouths twisting into smiles that were worse than frowns, knowing smiles, as if they understood the very core of her fears. "Stop looking at them, Timmy! Look away!" she shrieked, her voice fraying. Timmy buried his head into the fabric of his seat, breathing heavily, but she could tell he trembled from more than just fear. In that moment of despair, Jessie felt a surge of overwhelming sorrow pierce through her. What if turning back meant seeing all the things she had tried to forget? A sudden clarity struck her. There was no easy way out. But facing this, whatever it was, could save them somehow. "Hold on tight!" she yelled as she punched the accelerator, praying against all odds as the truck lurched forward toward the shadows. The laughter grew into a manic symphony, their excitement escalating as they surged to block the road ahead. The truck bounced and lurched, jostling them violently. A bone-rattling jolt sent Timmy's small frame sliding into her. He cried out, but Jessie was focused, eyes locked on the approaching darkness. With every ounce of her will, she aimed for the bramble of trees surrounding the road, forcing the truck to barrel down the nearest escape route. The shadows lunged, and with a heart-stopping scream, the truck slammed into the underbrush, sending the landscape flying past in a blur. The branches clawed at the vehicle, and Jessie held her breath, waiting for the impact of something that could shatter their fragile cocoon. Then silence fell. Jessie let out a shuddering breath as the truck crested a little hill, finally leaving the madness behind, or so she thought. But as she peered into the darkness beyond, a pulse of light, unearthly and alluring, flickered in the distance. What is that?" she whispered, a sense of dread and curiosity coiling around her heart. Timmy turned, and his eyes widened with a mix of awe and fear. "Mommy, it's the light. The light from before." Jessie felt the familiar pull, an invitation that offered both hope and warning. Could they really venture there? Was safety, truth, waiting for them, or another layer of horror? "Do we go?" Timmy asked, his voice small against the weight of the unknown. She was caught between the strands of terror and hope. Courage surged within her, just as doubt attempted to choke it out. With trembling hands, she turned the truck toward that haunting light, unaware of the deeper truths it held and the horrors lurking in the shadows waiting to strike back, to be continued. The truck lurched as Jessie revved the engine, the glow of the light growing brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat in the oppressive dark. It beckoned to them, an illusion of safety amid the chaos that threatened to swallow them whole. Jessie's mind raced. They had escaped, but for how long? What if it's a trap? Timmy's whisper was tiny, barely piercing through the storm raging outside. She swallowed the anxiety clawing at her throat. It has to be better than that. She gestured toward the darkness behind them, wordlessly affirming the terror that lurked in the shadows. The headlights sliced through the thickening fog, illuminating the path ahead. As they approached the flashlight's beam, details began to emerge. Jessie blinked hard, grappling with a sense of déjà vu. Trees stood gnarled and bent, their shapes distorted as though twisted by the grip of a storm. There was an unsettling familiarity in the surroundings that made her skin crawl. "Look, Mommy," Timmy pointed, his small finger shaking. "It's the old ranger station." Jessie's stomach dropped. The old ranger station was at the edge of Pinewood Forest, a place she had avoided since that dreadful summer when everything changed. Memories of laughter and sun now twisted into nightmares. "Keep your head down," she instructed, her voice raw with urgency. "We'll just—" Cold fingers slid down her spine. The laughter returned, twisted, mocking, intertwining with the fresh scent of rain-soaked earth. Faces emerged from the fog, shapes she thought she might recognize, but shifted, changed, confusing her thoughts. Each face bore childlike innocence, but twisted into grotesque caricatures of despair. "What are they doing?" Timmy's voice trembled. "Stay still!" Jessie hissed. She gripped the wheel, heart racing. Panic bubbled up like bile in her throat as she fought the urge to scream. The truck's headlights flickered, painting their faces in sudden, flickering light. She squinted, searching for any signs of life or safety, but there was none. The light from the ranger station grew brighter, casting an unsettling glow over everything, illuminating the twisted silhouettes amidst the trees. Shadows writhed, shifting and curling like smoke around their limbs, pulling them into an invisible vortex. Then an ear-splitting sound shattered the night, a metal clang, jarring and cruel. Jessie jerked back in her seat, instinctively slipping into reverse, desperately trying to escape the horror unraveling before her. "We should go back, please," Timmy begged, his voice cracking. "No!" Jessie shot back. "We can't. We need to see what's happening." Instinct overtook fear, and she turned off the headlights in a desperate attempt to shield them from whatever lay in that light. Just as she did, she noticed something in the rearview mirror, a face peering through the back window, its eyes dark holes devoid of humanity. A heart-wrenching scream tore from Timmy's lungs. "Mommy!" With a jolt, Jessie turned, but the face was gone. It left behind the suffocating weight of dread. Her heart raced and fear clawed its way up her throat. This was no ordinary encounter. Whatever was out there wanted them. "Hold on, Timmy!" She slammed the truck into gear, accelerating down the narrow path to the ranger station, hopelessly aware of the silhouettes closing in on them, laughter spiraling like a whirlwind around their vehicle. As they skidded into the clearing, Jessie realized too late that the sinister glow was not a beacon, but a warning. A tree loomed ahead, roots thrusting out like bony fingers into the dirt. She swerved last minute, but not before the truck clipped a gnarled branch that snapped and bit into the metal. The engine coughed and sputtered, protesting against the entrapment. "No, no!" Jessie pounded the steering wheel, panic rising. They were stuck, surrounded by shadows, creeping closer, mocking in their relentless haunt. "Mommy, I'm scared," Timmy cried from beside her, eyes wide and glassy. "Me too, baby. Just hang on." Then she saw it, a flicker of movement near the ranger station door. A figure stepped out, cloaked in darkness, but its presence seethed with an unearthly glow. Jessie's breath caught in her throat as the shadows parted, revealing something monstrous lurking just behind. "Who's there?" The voice was silky smooth, yet laced with malevolence. The world around her twisted. Timmy's whimpers faded into the background as she felt the icy caress of fear. They were no longer alone, and the night had just begun to unfold its terrible reality. To be continued. The figure at the ranger station loomed, swathed in shadows, but somehow radiating something that felt too alive, too hungry. Jessie's breath was ragged, her pulse pounding in her ears. Timmy's small hand gripped her arm tight, pleading with wide, terrified eyes. "Mummy, I don't like this," he whimpered, his voice barely a whisper. "Neither do I, sweetie," she managed, her throat dry and tight. She fought her rising panic, forcing herself to think. They couldn't sit here, trapped in this metal cage as the darkness danced around them. "Get out!" A sudden shout came from the figure, echoing unnaturally through the night, and Jessie's heart sank. It sounded like dozens of voices layered over one another, each one dripping with malice. "Jessie!" Timmy quivered. "What do we do?" "I don't know." She threw the door open, adrenaline surging through her. The air outside felt electric, charged with something sinister. "We have to run." They scrambled out, heartbeats in synchrony, as the laughter crescendoed around them. Jessie's mind scrambled for a direction, searching through the dense fog for any sense of safety. The ranger station felt less like a refuge and more like a snare. "Mommy, look!" Timmy pointed toward the station, and she wished he hadn't. 3 children stood at the steps, faces pale and wide-eyed, their mouths stretched into wicked grins. She recognized the first face, her blood running cold. "Lila!" Jessie gasped, and the girl's grin widened impossibly. "I told you to come play," Lila sang, the voice sweet like candy but poisoned. Jessie shook her head frantically, willing herself to focus, to remember the stories of the forest and the secrets buried deep within. Without warning, the ground trembled beneath them. Timmy staggered, glancing back toward the truck, shadows coiled around it, moving with willful intent. Jessie grabbed him tightly, her nails digging into his arm. "Run!" she shouted, tearing them away from the malevolent laughter echoing from the children. They dashed toward the trees, branches twisting like skeletal hands reaching for them. The darkness seemed to pulse closer, eager to swallow them whole. "Where do we go?" Timmy's voice broke, filled with terror. Filled. Just anywhere," she gasped. The trees closed in around them, the air thick with mist and fear. Through the chaotic haze, Jessie spotted something ahead. It shimmered, a faint glimmer leading deeper into the woods. "Over there!" Jessie pointed, blind hope swelling within her. They headed toward the light, feeling the cold breath of something sinister close behind. As they neared, Jessie hesitated. The light flickered, revealing what looked to be a faint portal of sorts, an entrance woven through the trees. The moment they stepped closer, whispers surged around them, merging in a shadowy chorus. "Join us, Jessie!" It was Lila again, voice echoing as if it reverberated from every corner of the forest. "You can't run from us! We just want to play!" Timmy squeezed her hand, his nails digging into her flesh. "Mommy!" "Don't listen!" Jessie screamed, pulling Timmy harder toward the light. "We have to get away!" They reached the edge of the clearing, but something pulled at her, like a thread unraveling her resolve. Shadows crawled at their feet, whispering promises of lost joys, of long-gone faces. She felt the pull of nostalgia mixed with dread, as if the forest itself was longing for them. Then she saw it, a familiar figure standing before the portal, blocking their way, a man with a hat that cast his features in darkness. "You can't leave," he said softly, yet every word stabbed through her heart. "You're already home." Something snapped inside her. She turned back to Timmy, the raw fear in his eyes igniting a flame of defiance. "We'll see about that." With one last surge of strength, she charged into the portal as the shadows lunged at them, hungry for their fear. They surged through, the world blurring around them, a cacophony of screams and laughter mixing with their own shouts. Then silence fell abruptly, and darkness enclosed them in a heavy embrace. Timmy's hand slipped from hers. Panic ignited in Jessie's chest. "Timmy, no! Mummy?" His small voice echoed, distant now. The darkness deepened, swallowing her cries. Now cut off and alone, Jessie felt a chilling certainty. They weren't just lost in the woods. They were trapped in something far more sinister. To be continued. Jessie stumbled forward, the oppressive darkness surrounding her thick as molasses. Her heart raced as she spun, desperate to find Timmy, to hear his voice more clearly. "Timmy?" She reached into the void, fingers grasping at nothingness, the reality sinking in that she was utterly alone. A chilling laugh pealed through the air, the kind that sent jagged shards of ice through her veins. It came from everywhere and nowhere, fanging at her sanity. "Your little boy is just fine. For now," a voice hissed, cruel and serrated. It echoed around her, tangible, mocking. "Leave him alone!" Jessie screamed, her voice cracking with primal fear. The laughter only grew, a wave crashing over her as she clawed her way deeper into the shadows, every part of her urging her to move, to escape the oppressive weight of unseen eyes. "Come play!" the voices taunted, fluttering in and out like memories just beyond grasp. "You'll find him if you play." Jessie shook her head violently. "No, I won't play." But hesitation seeped into her resolve. She sensed movement in the dark, the rustle of leaves, the flicker of shadows beneath an unseen moon. The figures emerging from the gloom grinned at her, faces carved from despair, children she didn't know, their eyes hollow but glinting with a hunger that sent bile rising in her throat. "Join us!" they wailed in unison, their mouths stretching wide, showcasing uneven teeth. "It's fun! We have games!" She stumbled back, breath hitching in her throat. These were no ordinary children. Any trace of innocence had been leached away, leaving only a twisted craving for play, for company, for something darker, something consuming. "Timmy!" Her voice was almost a sob now, a fragile thread connecting her to the only light she had left. "I'm coming. I won't abandon you." Behind her, a shadow flickered, larger than the rest. "You can't outrun what waits for you, Jessie," it whispered, slithering forward. "Your fear fuels them. Embrace it." A surge of anger burned within her. "I won't give in." She spun around, ready to face the figure, only to find emptiness. The echoes were silent now. The taunting laughter faded into a dreadful stillness, and all she could hear was her own heartbeat thrumming in the silence. But the stillness didn't last long. The ground beneath her shifted, pulling and pushing as if the earth itself was alive and grumbling, hungry. The laughter returned, echoing louder each second, a cacophony that crept under her skin. Then she saw a flicker of light again, a distant glow pulsing in the horizon of shadows, beckoning her as if it held the answers to her fears. "Timmy!" She dashed forward, fueled with the desperate hope that it was truly a way out. But the shadows snarled, retreating only to pounce back, claws of darkness reaching for her. Her feet crunched on unseen debris, and she stumbled again, the unease creeping like snakes around her ankles, constricting her progress. Just as she neared the glowing portal, the ground erupted. Tentacles of shadow reached up, slashing at her skin. A scream tore from her throat as she fought against them, every instinct screaming to escape. "I won't play!" she shouted defiantly. "You can't keep us!" Yet a piercing giggle answered, swirling joyfully around her like a dance. "But you already are. You'll find him if you wish to play." The glow flickered, wavering, and she stared into its depths, feeling a pull deeper than gravity as she paused, her heart pounding. The light was a beacon of hope, or a trap lying in wait. Fear surged anew, straining her mind. Did she have the strength left to leap into the unknown, knowing what awaited her? "Timmy!" she gasped again, clutching her head, feeling the shadows tugging ever closer. "Hold on!" Just as she gathered her determination, she heard an unmistakable whimper, fractured and faint. Somewhere close but lost in the swirling chaos, a plea for help. She couldn't stop now. But if she chose to leap into that light, would she rediscover Timmy and herself, or succumb to the darkness forever? To be continued. Jessie's heart raced as she fought her panic, the pulsing glow of the light ahead tugging at her, a siren's call promising salvation or doom. She could still hear it, the strained whimper of Timmy. He needed her. "Hold on, baby!" she screamed, summoning the last reserves of courage in her soul. With a fierce determination, Jessie lunged forward. The dark tendrils clawed at her ankles, yanking her back like a child throwing a tantrum. But she was a mother, and nothing would stand between her and her son. She kicked and struggled, her legs carving out a trail through the thick dark. As she staggered closer to the beckoning light, she became aware of the shadows shifting in tandem, twisting with rage and frustration, trying to pull her back into their depths. "You can't leave!" the familiar voices shrieked, their tones creeping into her skin, inducing panic. Jessie pushed forward, breathing heavily, the light flickering just ahead, sparking memories of warmth from her childhood. "Timmy!" she yelled again, as the whimpering faltered for just a moment before resuming. A shallow plea buried under terror. She took another step, then another, fingers gripping at the edges of the glowing entryway, feeling a warmth radiating like a furnace. "Mommy!" The urgency in Timmy's voice reignited her strength. With one last drive, she surged through the veil, the shadows retreating like restless spectres. For a heartbeat, Jessie felt suspended between worlds, and suddenly the flood of light engulfed her. She stumbled out, breathless and disoriented, blinking against the brightness. When her vision cleared, Jessie found herself standing in a surreal landscape. The looming trees were gone, replaced by a sprawling meadow under a vibrant sunlit sky. Yet confusion threaded through her heart. It felt so much like home, but a bittersweet edge lingered. Nothing felt quite right. "Timmy?" she whispered, panic edging back in. But as if answering her call, Timmy emerged from a thicket of grass, clutching his tattered bear, his face lit with relief. "Mommy!" He raced toward her, and Jessie dropped to her knees, enveloping him in a fierce embrace. The warmth of his body was like a balm, calming the relentless dread pulsing in her heart. Tears streamed silently down her face as she held him close. "I thought I lost you," she breathed, pulling back to look into his eyes, searching for the shadow of despair she'd felt in the shadows. But he looked whole, relieved. "I was scared, but they weren't mean here. They just wanted to play," Timmy said innocently. Jessie felt her heart clench. It didn't make sense, but they couldn't linger. Her instinct screamed for them to go. "Whatever is here doesn't belong. We need to find a way out." Her determination hardened, and she grabbed his hand, tugging him toward the edge of the lush meadow before them. Just then, the melodic laughter chimed from behind them, playful yet ominous. Jessie spun, the eerie sound intruding on their fragile moment. The figures from before emerged, their twisted, joyful appearances reformed, mocking her escape with grins too wide, eyes glinting with malevolence. "You can't leave without playing with us," they sang, voices harmonizing, chilling her spine. Jessie felt the sweat pooling at her brow, even in the bright setting sun. "It's your turn, Jessie." Timmy clutched tighter to her side. "Mommy, they want me," he insisted, trembling. The shadows flanked their sides, flickering around, twisting through the air as though waiting for an invitation to unfold their sinister game. "No!" Jessie shouted, fortified by the love she felt for her son. "We don't have to play your games." The light pulsed brighter behind her, grounding her, urging her to fight. "Play with us!" The laughter echoed, drowning out her thoughts, tempting her to join their ranks. But Jessie took a step back, summoning all her strength. "I refuse!" In that pivotal moment, something inside her clicked. The warmth of her love for Timmy glowed fiercely against the growing shadows. The figures gasped collectively, recoiling as if repelled by the radiant fire of her defiance. "I'm not afraid of you," Jessie declared, the fierceness buoying her spirit. "Timmy, we can break free. Hold on tight." The meadow quaked beneath her, the ground shifting as she pulled Timmy close. Everything narrowed into a focused pulse of defiance, a singular purpose tethering them as they darted toward the light's core. Jessie felt the shadows quaking with anger behind them, grasping at her, whispering temptations that held no power over her. The brightness enveloped them like a warm cocoon of safety, pulling them free as she thrust forward. In one final surge, Jessie and Timmy burst through. The moment they crossed the threshold, the storm's fury rumbled only faintly behind them, like a distant memory. Trees stayed firmly planted at the edge of the park, but the darkness had dissipated, leaving nothing but the shining moonlight above, and a quiet night unmarred by shadows. Trembling, Jessie stood holding Timmy in the safety of the glade, his small arms wrapped around her neck. "Are we safe?" he asked, blinking up at her in wonder. "For now," she whispered, pulling him even closer, protecting him from the memories of that forsaken night. Jessie looked back towards the park, her heart heavy yet lighter as hope threaded through. A long history of darkness had been momentarily bathed in the light of a new dawn, and though Maple Grove would forever hold its sinister secrets, she knew they wouldn't be just prey to its shadows anymore. "Let's go home," she said softly, determined to heal and tell their story. Hand in hand, they walked toward the edge of the park, away from the haunted legacies of Maple Grove, into a future where they would reclaim their light. And just as they took their first steps on the path of healing, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a whisper, "You will always be part of us." As the pair stepped back into the world of the living, Jessie felt a flicker of warning, a reminder that the darkness would always be waiting. But with Timmy's laughter mingling with the leaves, she smiled defiantly, ready to face whatever future lay ahead. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this chilling ending. And instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything